My friends, there is a moment in every life when the noise of the world becomes so loud that we forget the greatest power we already carry within us. Yet deep inside you, beneath fear, beneath doubt, beneath every limitation, there is a voice that never stops speaking. It is the voice of God within you, the voice of infinite intelligence, the voice that knows your path long before you do, the voice that warns you, guides you, protects you, and prepares you for the life you were created to live. But hear me clearly, when you ignore this voice, life becomes confusion. When you silence it, life becomes struggle. When you deny it, life becomes dangerous, and when you finally decide to listen, miracles begin to move in your direction. This speech is not just a message, it is a wake-up call, because there comes a time when the whispers of God become urgent, when the inner nudge becomes a warning, when destiny demands your attention. Before it's too late, before you lose your way, before you make a decision that changes everything, you must learn to hear that inner voice, the only voice that never lies and never misleads. Today, I'm here to help you tune back into that divine frequency, because the greatest turning point of your life will begin the moment you decide to listen to the voice of God within you. The inner voice is God's first warning system, because it speaks long before any problem appears in your physical world. It is a gentle nudge, a quiet feeling, a sudden discomfort, or a flash of knowing that something is not right. Most people call it intuition, conscience, or a gut feeling, but in reality, it is the divine intelligence within you trying to guide you away from danger and toward the path that is meant for your highest good. This voice never forces, never shouts, never argues. It simply whispers a direction, and if you are spiritually awake, you will hear it and respond immediately. But when you ignore it, the whisper becomes a lesson, and the lesson often arrives with discomfort. This inner warning system speaks in ways you can feel more than hear. It might show up as hesitation when you're about to make a decision, a sudden sense of uneasiness about a person or situation, or an unexplained urge to wait, rethink, or take a different path. That hesitation is not fear, it is guidance. That discomfort is not anxiety, it is protection. Every time you trust this signal, you step into alignment with divine timing, divine safety, and divine clarity. Life becomes difficult not because God is silent, but because we refuse to listen. The world teaches us to trust logic, appearances, and noise, but your spirit knows the truth long before your mind can analyze it. When you begin to honor this inner voice as God's first alert, your spiritual GPS, you will notice how many problems you avoid, how many wrong turns disappear, and how much peace enters your life. This guidance is always available. It is immediate, it is accurate, and it is placed within you out of love. Your safety, destiny, and purpose all begin with the courage to listen the first time the voice speaks. Ignoring intuition is the root of unnecessary suffering, because your inner knowing always senses the truth before your mind does. Every time you feel that quiet pull, that uneasy flutter in your chest, or that subtle warning telling you to slow down or walk away, it is not random emotion, it is inner intelligence trying to save you from pain. But when you dismiss it, when you override it with logic, fear, or impatience, you walk into situations that your spirit already warned you about. And later, when things go wrong, you say, "I knew it, something told me." That something was the divine signal you chose to ignore. Intuition is not dramatic. It is not loud. It never argues with your desires or tries to convince you. It simply presents truth in the simplest form, a feeling that something is off, a sense that someone is not who they pretend to be, or a subtle message that you need to wait, observe, or change direction. When you ignore those early signs, life has no choice but to teach you through experience what your intuition tried to prevent. This is why people end up in toxic relationships, draining friendships, bad business deals, or harmful habits. They felt the warning, but they chose comfort or convenience instead of listening. Suffering does not always come from fate. A large part of it comes from resisting the guidance already placed within you. When you begin to honor your intuition, you avoid unnecessary battles, delays, and disappointments. You start seeing red flags the moment they appear instead of after the damage is done. You protect your peace instead of repairing it. And with time, you realize that intuition is not just a feeling. It is divine protection in motion. Listening to it is wisdom. Ignoring it is a shortcut to struggle. Your life transforms the moment you take your inner warnings seriously. Divine guidance speaks in stillness, not noise, because the inner voice of truth cannot be heard in a mind filled with fear, rush, distraction, or mental clutter. The sacred intelligence within you is gentle by nature. It doesn't force itself into the chaos of your thoughts. It waits patiently for you to become calm enough to receive it. When your mind is noisy, every worry becomes louder than wisdom, every doubt becomes stronger than clarity, and every fear becomes bigger than faith. In that state, you are guided by emotion, not by spirit. But the moment you slow down, breathe, and allow silence to rise within you, the divine signal becomes unmistakably clear. Stillness is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of inner conflict. It is the space where thoughts settle, emotions soften, and your deeper awareness begins to surface. In that space, you suddenly know things without needing explanation. You feel guided without hearing words. You sense direction without seeing evidence. This is how the divine voice operates, quiet, subtle, yet deeply precise. But most people never give themselves a chance to hear it. They fill their days with urgency, their minds with worry, and their hearts with noise. They rush from decision to decision, hoping logic will save them, while ignoring the spiritual clarity that only silence can offer. And because they never pause, they miss the answers that were already inside them. The truth is, you don't find guidance through force, you receive it through surrender. When you sit in stillness, you align with a wisdom greater than your thinking mind. In that quiet space, confusion dissolves, fear weakens, and the next step becomes obvious. Divine guidance has always been speaking to you. Your stillness is what finally allows you to hear it. Your subconscious is the channel of God's instructions because it is the deepest, quietest part of you, the place where divine wisdom meets human consciousness. It is not limited by logic, fear, or past experiences. It receives impressions, ideas, warnings, and inspirations directly from the infinite intelligence that governs your life. Whenever you feel an inner pull, a sudden realization, or a quiet certainty about something, it is not your surface mind speaking. It is your subconscious transmitting guidance from a higher source. This inner channel operates silently, consistently, and faithfully. It knows what your conscious mind has not yet discovered, and it sees what your physical eyes cannot yet recognize. Your subconscious responds to signals beyond the reach of your ordinary senses. It picks up on energy, intention, danger, opportunity, and truth long before your mind can analyze them. That is why you sometimes just know something without understanding how you know. This knowing is not imagination, it is revelation. The subconscious receives it first, and then sends it to you through feelings, intuition, dreams, or sudden clarity. The more open you are, the clearer these messages become. However, when your mind is filled with fear, negativity, or doubt, the channel becomes blocked. The divine instructions are still being sent, but you cannot receive them clearly. This is why spiritual growth requires inner cleansing, releasing old beliefs, calming the mind, and creating space for truth to rise. When your subconscious is clean, calm, and receptive, it becomes a perfect instrument for divine communication. The most powerful guidance of your life will not come from the outside world, but from the inner world where God speaks to you personally. When you trust this channel, you move with confidence instead of confusion. You make decisions with peace instead of fear. And you begin to live a life shaped not by chance, but by divine direction. Alignment with the inner voice creates instant clarity because the moment you connect with the guidance within you, confusion loses its power. Doubt fades, fear weakens, the scattered thoughts in your mind fall into harmony, and suddenly the next step becomes obvious. This clarity does not come from reasoning or overthinking. It comes from alignment. When your mind, heart, and spirit move in the same direction, there is no internal conflict left to cloud your judgment. You stop debating with yourself, you stop guessing your choices, and you stop chasing answers outside because the truth rises naturally from within. Most confusion comes from being pulled by two forces, the voice of your ego and the voice of your spirit. The ego is loud, anxious, rushed, and always seeking control. The spirit is calm, wise, patient, and always guiding you toward peace. When you align with the inner voice, the divine guidance, you silence the ego. You shift your attention away from fear-based thinking and tune into a higher frequency where wisdom flows effortlessly. Alignment is not something you force. It happens the moment you choose to trust your intuition over your doubt. It happens when you pause long enough to listen. It happens when you stop resisting what you already know inside. In that moment of surrender, clarity arrives not as a loud announcement, but as a deep inner certainty that feels peaceful, steady, and unmistakable. This clarity is powerful because it gives you direction, it gives you momentum, it gives you confidence. You no longer walk blindly or anxiously. Every step feels guided, supported, and purposeful. When you align with the inner voice, you align with your true path, and everything that once felt complicated becomes simple. It is in this state of alignment that the answers you seek finally reveal themselves. Your destiny depends on hearing before reacting, because every decision you make shapes the course of your life. The inner voice of God within you is always speaking, offering guidance, caution, and insight before circumstances force you into lessons. It appears as a subtle nudge, a feeling of hesitation, or an intuitive knowing that something is right or wrong. Those who ignore this guidance often find themselves entangled in challenges, obstacles, and mistakes that could have been avoided. Listening first allows you to act from a place of wisdom rather than regret. Reacting without first hearing the inner voice is like sailing without a compass. You may move quickly, but you risk going in the wrong direction. Decisions made in haste, under pressure, or based solely on appearances often lead to setbacks, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities. The inner voice, however, provides a calm, steady influence that aligns your actions with your highest good.